Oh, okay. Cool. That's cool, man. Yeah, you ever heard the Ray Hunt comment on mules?
No.
What was it? His too poor to ride a horse, too proud to ride a cow.
Too poor. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. So that maybe that's a little different take than Tom had, but
Yeah.
that's cool, man. That's awesome.
Wait. So Nick, why were you riding a mule though in the first place?
I was telling Joe, like out here, I've got some really steep, rugged country, like pretty real steep. And I like those mules for going up and getting around stuff. And like if you can't, like on a mule, they're fun because if you can't go there, if they won't let you ride them there, you probably don't belong. And I like that because they're just so much more stable on them side hills and stuff. Because like here, we'll have a lot of side hills with big rocks and they're slippery and whatnot. And those mules, they motor around and they can turn around like on a dime. You know, like a horse has a hard time turning around on a steep hill and maneuvering, where a mule is just so much better. So I always have a couple around. I've got one good one that's in the bridle, and then I've got another one kind of mid range, and then I've got a green one that I'm trying to get going. But I like them for that, and I love them when in the winter when we're getting after those cattle that are kind of hid out in the mountains and they're pretty wild, and we end up roping a lot of maverick bulls and stuff. And so like to rope one of them on my good mule, he's about can do what a horse and a half, two horses can pull. So like to drag them in the trailer and stuff, boy, they're awesome. They're so awesome.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
I always tell my help as we're smoking through the mountainside, just because I don't get off doesn't mean I wouldn't if I was on a horse.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's some stuff that I'll go through, and then I'll be like, you guys might, on these horses, you might want to get off through this whole section.
That's awesome. That's cool. So, tell us about Cowboy Week, Nick. By this point, people who are listening, they've seen the kind of your Instagram probably, or seen us talk about it a little bit maybe. So it's something you've been doing for a while now, isn't it?
Yeah, we've probably done it 5-6 years. Seems like longer than that. But yeah, I've done it here at my place for probably 5 or 6 years. How it all got going when I was working for Van Norman's up there in Northern Nevada. Bill Van Norman, he was, I think we talked about him last time, and I'm sure Joe has talked about him and Brian too. He was incredible horseman. Like I wish he was still around. He passed away years ago, but that guy is something else. And, oh shoot, somebody's coming. We're going to have to edit. Hold on. Somebody's coming. I got to lock them out.
No worries.
But anyway, Bill Van Norman, his father-in-law was Ray Hunt. So he was around Ray and Tom and his dad, Charlie. They were all like exceptional hands. I mean, top notch. And up there in Northern Nevada, it's quite a bit colder than here. And so he had Charlie at his place. They had the only indoor arena that was around. And so there was liable to be 2 foot of snow up there at any given time through the winter. They didn't see bare ground till spring. And so we would always start the Van Norman horses there. The Van Norman crew would start them. And then Bill would invite all the neighbors around that had horses to start and different things. And so you'd get a handful of the neighbors from the YP, Spanish Ranch, Rhodes. They'd come over. And what I loved about it was if they wanted help, Bill would help them. But if not, everybody just kind of did what they did, and it was all good. And then, but if somebody needed help, he was there to help. And if not, we just kind of rode around. And I thought that was a real neat approach. And so probably the funnest part was you were around really good hands, and it was just a just a lot of fun to start horses in that environment. Nobody was trying to outdo each other. Everybody was just trying to get their horses started. So when they started using them in the spring, they had something kind of going. And that's where I always said, when I get my place built and I get a covered arena and I've got a predictable place to ride, I want to do the same thing. I want to get my friends down here and give them a dry place to ride, because a lot of my friends are still up in northern Nevada. And so we started doing it. And, like my help says, it's the funnest week of the year. We get a bunch of good hands, talk a lot of horsemanship, tell a lot of stories. It couldn't be any more fun.
Wow. Yeah, Joe and I have talked about that a bunch, that anytime you get the chance to work with your peers, especially people that are better than you, I mean, there's no substitute for that. Like, I have more of a construction background from the time I was like a kid to like mid-teen years. I was homeschooled, so we worked from a pretty early age. But I remember, you'd be on job sites, and if you're roofing or something, if there's a bunch of guys, you watch the other guy have some little technique where he can, rip a shingle out and throw it down and slap 4 nails in. And next thing you know, you're like, I'm going to adapt that. And I'm going to, and you're not even competing with him, right? But you're working, but there's this fun competition. And that's something Joe and I've talked about that too, is both of us kind of live by ourselves. And so we appreciate the idea of that. We've thought about getting together just to start colts, not like we have some knowledge, but just to be around each other, to create that like camaraderie. But I mean, even if you're two idiots, at least one of you is going to do something that the other one isn't doing. And you're going to go, oh, look at that. He's actually doing what we learned at that last clinic. I should try that too. So that's when Joe first mentioned that. And then I looked at that Instagram clip and heard about what you were doing. Boy, that I can't help but get really excited about that, because that's, gosh, I miss that a lot. I know I said we have a lot going on today, but it's not like there's a bunch of great hands better than me down there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's so fun. And what's really fun about it is everybody that's here is very well accomplished in their own right. So like, I've got cowboys that I respect in the cowboy field immensely. You've got trainers. A lot of my old assistants come back, and so they can take what they learned here and then put their spin on it, and then come back and help me. This year is going to be ultra special because Brian and Joe are going to be here, and I can't remember the last time I started a horse with either one of them. So that'll be really fun. I know I'm going to be bugging them a lot. And like, what's so cool about horsemanship and just having a good set of principles, you can take those principles and you can apply them to whatever. So it gets me jacked up to be around those guys and get me thinking that way. And then I can kind of morph that into my training deal, my more performance, you might call it, kind of a deal. And I still learn a ton from those guys, just in the fact that, it gets me thinking again. And it's so easy to, as you guys probably know, like when you're riding and you've got a pile to ride, you kind of get to going through the motions. And what's so good about Cowboy Week, it kind of recharges the batteries of thinking about it and why are we doing this, and just setting things up that way to where you're thinking about the process, not just kind of going through the motions, and it kind of recharges the batteries. Like a friend of mine, Casey, he's been about every year. We were talking the other day on the phone, and he was like, yeah, what I love about there is it gets me in such a pure mindset of horsemanship. And then my challenge every year is trying to keep it as long as I can keep it through the year before I'm like, man, how did I get from thinking about it that way to turning into a machine again? And so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? And I mean, obviously you've got a crew there and you're not completely alone, but I noticed one of the things that changed for me was when I went from riding horses for the public, literally completely alone, like the only person showing up at the barn, doing anything, to having someone who works for me And not that I'm around someone who's farther along than me, but I'm around someone who also wants to get better. And so then
Mm-hmm.
they might be apt to like ask a question or say, well, why is that working for you and not me? And literally just having another human being around that kind of is like-minded, it kind of keeps you in that mind frame longer. Because
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, if you're completely by yourself, man, I mean, you might as well be the guy, like, going to do flooring at someone's house. Like, not that there isn't a lot of skill in that, but you're kind of going to your construction job, like doing that. And you might not necessarily be trying to think through everything. You might just be doing the same things you've done all the time.
Yep. Yep. And that's what's fun about Cowboy Week too, is because we've all got, the core principles, right? We've all got the core principles: make the right thing difficult, or the right thing easy, the wrong thing difficult, those kind of sayings. We've all got those, but we've got kind of masters in their different fields. And so to see, just the way one of the Cowboys might not perfected it, because you can't really ever perfect it, but he's honed it in and took something and made it really work really good for him in the Cowboy field. And that's fun to see. And it's like, it just feeds the fire. Right. And that's kind of what I do with my show stuff, is I take these core principles and then I figure out how to make it work for me at the upper end of performance horses. And it's just fun to be around like-minded people. And like you said, everybody's excited about it. That's the thing too. Like, I've tried really hard. I've kind of kept it a pretty tight group of participants, and it's everybody that shows up is like, just like we are. They're just ate up with it. And so that just feeds the hunger that much more, right? Like, when you're around those people, it just makes you want to be better. And that's what it's all about. Like, it's different than the clinic deal, where the clinic deal, I'm paid for results and I need to help them with their horse and help them now. And a lot of times there, I'm going to be the best rider there, have the most experience, where here I might not have the most experience in some areas of horsemanship. And that's fun for me. Like, it's kind of like when I used to go Cowboy. Larry Schutte ran a ranch here, not far from here. Well, not far, it's 150 miles, but that's not far in Nevada standards, I guess. But he would always get day workers in to do like some spring work and fall work and stuff. And he would always get like elite guys I really looked up to. And man, I loved going over there, because a lot of times I was the greenest one on the crew compared to those guys. But you could shrink in those moments, or you could use it to fuel you to want to get what they had going. And I love that. And that's kind of what Cowboy Week is. In a nutshell, it's just a bunch of really good hands kind of feeding off each other, taking everybody to the next level, myself included, 100%.
Hey there, On the Move listener. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to stop and listen to our podcast. Whether you're a faithful listener or a first-time listener that likes what you hear, if you want to support us, there's a couple things you can do. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos on YouTube, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us and leave us reviews. Whatever medium you're listening on, if you can engage with the podcast on there by following, leaving positive reviews, and just generally helping spread the word about On the Move, it's a big help to us, and it helps us grow and bring you better episodes every week. Again, thanks for your support, and we'll see you guys.
Mm-hmm. So you said you've been doing this about 9 years or so. What's your expectation, or at least, what's your hope going forward for publicizing it and kind of bringing some people in? It sounds like, so you're going to bring people in a virtual sense where they can watch it.
Yeah. How that got started is, you know how it is. Like, my facility is only so big, and you can only have so many people here before it kind of loses its close feel, and where everybody can visit with everybody and everything. And I would honestly, I would love to have 100 people here, or 200, but I just can't. And so, short of kind of keeping people in the dark on it, I thought, why not just do a podcast or a webcast and let everybody come? And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the main reason why, because you've got people overseas, you've got people on the East Coast that it's a long ways to haul horses out here and do different things, and the facility's only so big. And a lot of it is just so people. I feel so strongly about Cowboy Week as it helps me, that I wanted to share that with everybody. And so that's where the idea come up. Like, yeah, it's just a chance to essentially open up my place to anybody that wants to come. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with the webcast. Is it's not a clinic, and it's not a how-to. You're just going to get a chance to listen in to some upper level dudes working horses, and kind of their thought process, and why that works for them, and what to look out for, and all these things. And with that comes a bunch of good experience, and I can't wait. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, people poo-poo technology, but that's a perfect example of how technology is a great tool. And as horsemen in this era, that's a real privilege to have those tools. Just like the tool of the podcasting thing that we're doing right now, the ability to build more community across different disciplines, different states, different all the things that separate like-minded people. And I don't mean separate like ideologically. Joe, what's that word?
Ideologically?
Yeah, that's it. I've listened to podcasts where people can't pronounce a word, and they're just not going to get it, and usually someone else has to feed it to them. So that's why I just asked.
That's why I'm on.
Now I see it perfectly. I know you're the scholar. But exactly, there's so many things that divide us, like distance, right? But the key element to getting better is being around people that are better than yourself, and building that community. And so I think, for anybody, it's so funny, especially in the cowboy world, people go, "Oh, this technology," and it's always kind of a, you try to act like you are having a hard time dealing with it when, I get where it can be detrimental in some areas, but in this instance, that is a perfect example of utilizing it as a real tool to help other people get better. And I'm sure it will help what you're doing grow tremendously.
Oh yeah. I mean, iron sharpens iron, right? So if you can surround yourself with those kind of guys and let them help you and be open-minded, what an opportunity. And like, what would we give to be listening or have it documented? And I'm not even saying that, trust me, I'm not saying that I'm in this category, but what would we give to listen in on Ray and Tom working a horse like nobody was there? Like if we could go back in time and capture that, I mean, how incredible would that be? And yeah, they're not giving a clinic, or they're not doing, it's not broadcasted a guy in a round pen straight towards you, but just to listen in on those conversations, oh man, that would be incredible. And that's what's so cool about kind of the way we think about horses, is it's not specific to a discipline. A horse is a horse in the way they learn. And so, like you might get somebody on that webcast where they're a hunter jumper, or who knows, but it's not about cowboys and horse trainers and cow horse guys or whatever. It's horses, right? And that's what's so cool about it, is it's not discipline specific, and you'll get a chance to listen to some guys that are very accomplished in their field talk about it and bounce some ideas off each other. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joe and I made it to the NFR, and we talked about it a bunch already on here. But one of our takeaways was the competition and it being a good thing, and how in our line of riding. Now, of course, you show horses. Joe and I, maybe we will someday, but we're not in a competitive environment. But we kind of are against ourselves.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
In a good way. And so being there at the NFR and seeing how those guys, they do something different than we do, but kind of in the Western world, and you feel that camaraderie to them right off the bat. And then they've got this structure for scoring and competition, and you can see your buddy do better, and you can see someone else do better, and then maybe you'll do well and someone else may beat you. So in a way, there's this structure that's laid out that helps them get better and better year after year in a healthy way. And we were talking about how we kind of wish we had a little bit of that in our work. And I think, things like what you're doing and others have done with online events and like making content, but not just making like content where you're speaking at people, but the way you're doing it where, you're bringing in, your mentors and your friends, and you're making more interactive content.
Exactly.
I think it's going to be really exciting to see more of these things get made in the horse industry where, maybe there'll never be, and I hope there never is like a horse training competition structure that's like set in place that you have to compete with in order to be somebody. But to just have these tools and resources out there, it does give a little bit of that structure where you can't really just be in your own bubble and think you're doing so great. You'll have things like Cowboy Week that you'll watch and you'll think, gosh, I got to get a little better. Because, it's like if you were a team roper and you go to the NFR, and if you're a bad team roper, you can't sit there and really feel good about yourself unless you're an idiot, because you're going to be like, wow, these guys are really great. I should aspire to do better. And that's a really good thing for people to have something to look up to. So same thing with horsemanship being paired with technology and being used in areas like this. I think that'll be really exciting to see, just more structure and more examples and have it more accessible so that you can have kind of a structure in your life of all these people you want to be like and get better at what they do. And it's easy. It's accessible. It's on your phone, or you can look it up on your computer. And I like that idea of the interactive kind of content versus, just turning on like a DVD where a guy's just talking to you, just getting to interact virtually with other people working at their craft. And then you comparing yourself to that and learning from it.
Yeah, for sure. And like the last few years, it's people ask me, well, how come you don't have more training stuff? Like, how come you don't have more DVDs and different things like that? And they're just really hard for me because they're hard in the sense that when you're making a training DVD, let's say on colt starting, it almost has to become in a sense, it has to become a how-to. And what's tricky about a how-to is there's so many variables to the horse and the human that it's hard. Like where I've learned the most, and maybe I'm an outlier here, I don't know, but like where I learn the most is where I can hear somebody talk about something, or I can have a conversation with Brian or Joe or Gene or Bill when he was around, and I could have a conversation about it and then go make it work for me. And then we can visit again or whatever it is. And I feel like when you're hearing guys bounce ideas off each other and it's more of a casual setting, it allows you to take what you kind of glean from that conversation, and then you can go make it work for you. And it's liable to be better in a lot of ways. Like it's not limiting you to what you learned from me. It's taking the principles and making them your own with whatever practices you might come up with. And that's what's fun. Like I said, some of my old assistants, they hear principles and different things till they're blue in the face. And then when they leave, a lot of times they come back and they're so much further along than they were when they were underneath me, so to speak, working here, because they've had a chance to experiment with different things and make it become their own. And with that, I can go ahead and get some back from them, like it's so awesome. I don't want to limit them to be a miniature me in their way of thinking. I want to give them the tools to think and use these principles to make them work for them in their situations and their environments and with their horses. And son of a gun, like you'll be amazed what they come up with. And that's why I'm so grateful to get around the guys I was around, because like Brian, especially Brian, like he is the master of like creativity with horses and figuring out different things to adjust to fit the situation and have the horse come out a winner. And I think if your horsemanship principles are sound, you can try a lot of things and you never know what you're going to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, we've kind of mentioned this already, but that kind of plays back into, you are creating an environment where it's not just like say you were at Brian Newbert's house, right? And watch Brian in his playground. Now you've made a playground for everybody. And I don't know the exact format. I'd like to hear about it a little more, but say you got guys, you guys are starting like 5 colts at a time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you get to maybe hear someone like Brian or Joe say something, and then you get to see that applied to 5 different horses by 5 different horsemen, and you can like it's not the tip, like if you think of like a Ray Hunt colt starting, right? It's like one guy in the round pen, and he's going down that one path, and like you just alluded to, it's not one path because all the horses are different. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to see like how to get it done in that afternoon with that horse in that environment. But just by the fact that you're bringing more people together, you're getting to see people go down multiple paths at once, basically.
Yep.
So, in theory, you could like watch this multiple times and say, well, now I'm just going to watch that colt. Now I'm going to watch that colt. If you're in like a group colt starting setting,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
format, but that's what, anytime I've started colts in a group of people, that's been my favorite thing about it.
Yep.
Hey guys, let's talk about steel buildings for a minute. Maybe you've looked into making one, building one on your place. Maybe you saw the price tag and that scared you off. Maybe just the sheer amount of work and effort, planning, all that good stuff that goes into it has kept you from going ahead and building on your property. Well, now's a great time to get a free quote from a great company. Head over to www.metalmdi.com/on-the-move. And our friends at Metal Material Direct have a free online configurator. You can plug in all your details, dimensions, specifications, colors, windows, dormers, all kind of cool stuff. And you can see the building and get a free quote. If you head over there now and tell them that the guys from On the Move sent you, you can get a massive discount on your building. And we're talking American steel. This is top quality stuff, guys, and a great company. They also offer fencing, a really cool fencing solution. It's octagon pipe with bolt together connectors. So don't miss out on this. If you have wanted to build, need a building, or building fence, building an arena, just anything ranch, farm, or commercial related, head on over to www.metalmdi.com/on-the-move and tell them that the guys from On the Move sent you.
Yep. And that's what's even a little bit more different here is where everybody is accomplished in their own right and can do it on their own and different things. Like you'll see an approach to a situation that maybe you've never seen before, but that guy's super proficient at it. And I know, like me, I'll just stop and I'll just stop. Hey, what are you up to over there? Well, I'm doing this. Okay. Why? Well, this reason. And what do I have? Okay. What kind of horses would this work on? Would it work on a sensitive? No, you won't want to do it on a sensitive one. You're going to want to do it on this type, or like just the sky's the limit. Like I know the kind of the run of the mill ones. Yeah, we'll just get them started. But anything that's any kind of tricky or a little bit outside the realm of what norm is, like I'm not going to hesitate to call Brian or Joe or Rye or Casey or anybody over and say, what would you do right here? Well, I do this. Okay, I never thought of that. All right, and that's what's so fun about it is because when you run into a spot that might be a little tricky or maybe you think there's a way you could help your horse more. And that's definitely where I'm going to be, is like, I know what I would do, and it's going to work, but I want to see what Brian has to say about this. I want to see what Joe has to say about this. That's what's so fun about this deal, is if there's any kind of a hiccup, boy, we can get three guys' opinion. Yeah, let's try that, and then go back into helping that horse. And so that's what's really cool about it too. You might see a completely different approach to something that you've seen 100 times, or you can just go in, even if you have seen 100 times, like I've seen a lot of scenarios replay themselves over and over, and I know what I would probably do in this circumstance, but I might be missing something. So I want to see what these other guys have to say, and gals, and go from there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We're talking about this today. Joe and I just recorded an episode. I don't know when it'll get released yet, maybe before or after this, but we recorded it last night. And our previous guest, we were talking about anatomy, and we were discussing with her the concept of never. And she was saying how that's such a bad concept. Don't ever say never. And how I was just thinking just now, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But, having a specific way, or having, like you said, like building a how-to, and that being the way to do it, that's like the beginning of like communism. And then that's the death of creativity, and how, good ideas are forged through negotiating differing or opposing ideas, and how like that's so important to create community. I remember, I don't know, have you ever read a book? It's kind of a corny title, but it's a great book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And it talks about, have either of you guys read that book? It's a great book. It's like on those like must read reading lists for, being a manly dude or whatever. And, but it's a great book, and it talks about this guy in Babylon. Yeah, we should all probably read it some more. And basically, he raised the, I believe it's based on, absolutely. It's based on real historical information. And this guy, he raised the middle class considerably, or he created a middle class through working hard and helping his friends. And the main tool he used was getting his friends together and talking about ideas. And he kind of presided over it, but there was this freedom to get these men together, and they developed the trust, and they developed a community, and then they could share an idea, and then anybody could argue against that idea or support it, and they just discuss things. And that, reading that book is like kind of like, sounds like what you're doing with Cowboy Week, or like so many other things that I've seen done in other industries or other areas. And I've thought, gosh, that would be so wonderful. Like, imagine every day going to work, and like you're a professional, you're doing your job, but you have like these other people where like they may throw out an idea, or you can throw out an idea, and you'll get some responses, and you'll either be affirmed or you may be diverted down a new course. But that freedom of ideas and not getting locked on some ideology, that totally fits with horsemanship. And that's what keeps that creativity alive. And like, you just would never want that to go away. That's so important.
Oh yeah. And that's another, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times, well, what we'll do is, it's fairly cold this time of year. So to get started much before 8:00, the ground's hard. And so my wife will make breakfast for everybody. Cowboys are usually up early. And so some of the fondest memories I have of Cowboy Week is like, we'll meet up in the cookhouse at 5 a.m. And if we had a horse, or even if we didn't have a horse, but say we had a horse that was a little bit outside the box or outside the realm of norm, everybody had a chance to sleep on it. And we all can't wait to get there to discuss over coffee, like, hey, what if we tried this? And there's just this dialogue back and forth, just what you're saying, where we all get together and we'll chat about it and tell different stories. Well, I had a horse that did this, and I tried this and it worked really good. Maybe we should try that with this horse, and things like that. And just having that coffee time conversation is, it's probably my funnest part, more than the practical, honestly. Getting together and hearing stories of their experience and things where it's not in a, well, we should get back to work. We got these horses standing here where, we've got a couple hours, 3 hours sometimes of chatting, and those are awesome. So I want to make sure that we get those in on Cowboy Week too. So there's going to be not only like working horses, like you're going to get some breakfast time conversation and all the things you're just talking about, where 3 or 4 or 5, 10 people might just be chiming in on their experience with that kind of horse. And the beauty of it is we can reference back to the horses because you guys seen them the day before on the webcast, and we can talk about it and mull it over and try to come up with what we think is going to be the best approach for that horse that day. And it's like you said, we can't even hardly wait to get back to the cookhouse so we can discuss what we slept on and thought about. And that's the thing about having the group of people that are here is, like, especially if there's a horse that needed a little extra help, I guarantee everybody thought about it that night, whether they woke up in the middle of the night or not, everybody was thinking about it. And we can't wait to get back to share what maybe our view of what we could do to help him might be, whoever's view that is. And that's what's fun about Cowboy Week. Just the camaraderie and the exchange of ideas is incredible. It's like no other event that I've gone to, because a lot of times unfortunately, when you get a group of guys together that are accomplished, everybody's trying to kind of win over the crowd, so to speak, or try to it turns into just a subtle competition where, we're trying to show that what we do is a little better than so-and-so. And it's just hard to not have that aspect where here it's pure. I mean, everybody's got respect for everybody, and it's super pure, comes from the right place, and it's incredible. So I really hope that is conveyed over the webcast. That's my number one goal, is to keep that alive and convey that to everybody else. And like you talked about earlier, just let them be a part of it, because I mean, I would have, I don't know how much it'd be worth, but it'd be worth a lot of money to sit in on some of these conversations that Tom and Ray and those guys had at the breakfast table. Like, how invaluable would that be now? And then I could take that and make it my own in whatever field I'm in. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. Well, and going back to what Ben said, he used that example of they had a forum, but it was a forum where there was this underlying sense of trust, right? So because this group you're putting together, there's a sense of trust there.
Yep.
It's kind of understood you're all pulling in the same direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, like you said, oh, well, I would have done this,
Trying to prove the other one wrong almost.
Right, exactly. Or, trying to sell their DVDs or their halter or what, like all that stuff that, like, you can go down that rabbit hole when you get to, like, a big horse expo or some places where there are, like, trainer forums, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying all of those are bad, but to have that basis of trust where it's like all you guys are pulling in the same direction and you're just all trying to get the horses going, as opposed to, speaking to a big live audience and trying to sell yourself a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Absolutely. And Joe, I'll do you one more on that. In that book, they didn't just share their ideas, but they would challenge each other and say, what was your experience with that idea? How did you apply it? And they would wait for a response. And if they had no response, they would say, well, that's an unfounded idea. Or if they had a response, they'd say, okay, that's how you applied it. How did that work out for you? And then, okay, so what are you doing now? So it was all backed up with something. And I heard recently, forget who it was, somebody on a podcast said, they mentioned a remark and they said something like, I think they said intellectuals are rotting society. And you could go, that's a little bit harsh. But in a way, I know what they meant. And it's like intellectuals without any sort of hard evidence backing them up, that would kind of rot society, because we've all seen those roundtable discussions, right? Even with horses, where you have some great trainers sitting around, but they're all just kind of throwing ideas out there and debating and discussing, and it's probably all good stuff. but it's really just all talk. And so what's so cool about what you're doing is, like you said, you can have a breakfast discussion, but that might even happen after you've already done actual application of these ideas. Now you're going to discuss it. Well, if there's any debate on whether or not someone's right, you'll find out later on that day when you actually work with a horse. And so I don't know what you would call that, but it's like a mixture of, thinking and discussing, but pairing that with actual real life evidence that you can back it up with. And it's not just empty words or empty discussion. And you do get that with the roundtable discussions, or that could happen with a podcast, I guess, too, where, we're not really grounding our words. But in the sense, to be able to create content like you are, where you can have words and you can have discussions, which that's great. That's where it gets in depth and you can really focus on what you're talking about. But then those ideas can be proven out. It's not just like blowing in the wind, where it's like, well, that sounds really good, Nick, but no, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be living out what you talk about. And if it doesn't work out, I guess your next talk will be talking about why it didn't work or why it does work. And so they focused on that in that book. I love that, how, everyone had their ideas, but they would ask them, how did that work out for you?
And this is try this. No, a little bit here, a little bit there. Boom. Got it. Okay. And you can actually take what they talked about and you might understand it, at the breakfast table, but to actually go out there and do it, it's like you got two left hands for a minute, but somebody helps you a little bit here and helps you a little bit there. And then all of a sudden it's like, got it, and then it all clicks. And that's where we can pair the two together. It's awesome. So cool.
Hey, On the Move listener. Have you been following us on social media? Have you been watching the video format of the podcasts? If so, you've probably noticed by now that we have On the Move merch. I'm wearing one of our hats right now. The first order of hats we did flew off the shelves, and we've only got a handful left in each style. But we're doing another order, and if you want to pre-order your On the Move hat today, go to www.onthemovepodcast.com. There you'll find our Shopify store with hats, mugs, stickers, and other merch. Get it just in time for the holiday season and let everyone know that you're on the move.
So cool.
I was talking to Nicole Poyo the other day, and she was actually no free ads, but she was telling me about the planner she made. So if you're listening and you still have a chance to go buy Nicole's planner, you should go get one for 2024. But she said she was there at, I guess last year.
Yep.
She was there and watched some of Cowboy Week.
Yep.
Yeah. And she told me a cool story, that I thought it was like a cool example of kind of what goes on. And I'll just kind of tell you what I remember and let you expand on it. But I guess you were working on a horse you were going to take to the world's greatest. You were working on the steer stopping. And you had someone there who maybe had a little more experience on like getting the horse to leave just right. Or something to that effect. You guys were working on the horse leaving the box. Can you talk about that story a little bit? Because I thought it was really cool and was kind of like a good example of like what this whole deal seems to be about, in my eyes at least.
Yeah. And you have to forgive me. I don't remember the specific of it, but
no worries.
But it's one of those, that's just Cowboy Week in a nutshell. Like if everybody's so open and has so much respect for one another, if somebody's got something to say, nobody's scared to say it, and nobody's going to shut them out and be like, no. I'm
right.
I'm the yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what Nicole told me then was, I guess you were working on basically getting your horse to leave the box correctly. Because as someone who does rein cow horse, like it's not like you're practicing steer stopping every week, right? So you're kind of getting geared up for that. And someone was there kind of helping you by working the gate, right, to release the steer.
Okay. Yep.
And so he was doing it. I guess more based off of the timing of your horse, like
Mm-hmm.
where, and you didn't necessarily know what he was doing. He just told you, get in the box and I'll work the gate for you and all this. And then Nicole said, you stopped everything. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You need to explain to me what you're doing. Because I can tell you're doing this like with timing. You're letting the steer go with timing, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand when you're using this timing.
Yeah.
And that, that's the perfect example of, obviously you're not this kind of guy, but someone in that position and who is as accomplished as you could have some like 19-year-old just opening the gate, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you like work on steer stopping yourself, but instead you chose to surround yourself with people who maybe know a little bit more about this part in particular than you
Mm-hmm.
do. And not
100%.
only that, but when they're helping you, if you don't understand, you will stop what's going on and make sure you understand.
Yeah.
And not everyone, you don't have to do that, and not everyone necessarily does do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be an ego check too, right? And that's what's so awesome about the group of guys is nobody's trying to outdo each other. And so, like, if I can learn something there, man, I'm all about it. And yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you can help me with something, and if I can pause and to Ben's point, ask you a question of why and how and your experience with it, and then you back it up and I'm seeing the results, I'm in. Like it's great. And like another example of that is my buddy Nolan. He had his boy out here and he was on a little miniature horse, and like my kids are all a little older now, not super old. My youngest is 11, but my kids aren't learning how to get a horse to go at 6 years old like his boy was. And so I've had quite a bit of experience getting my kids riding and getting their ponies to go and direct and different things. And so, I stepped in there and I was helping his boy. And that was one of the funnest parts of last year for me, is because I was showing him some things to get him freed up. And by the end, we kind of had, hey, why don't you just back it off a little bit and give that pony a break? Because once he got that little pony freed up, then it felt so good. He was rimming all around there. But yeah, just little things like that. I'm not saying Nolan wasn't doing all the right things, but I had a little different twist because I had the experience with my kids and different things like that. And so boom, just those kind of deals are, I mean, they just happen so organically that it's just part of Cowboy Week.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big thing too. You might, especially if it's like your parent or something like that, you might be able to just like hear the same thing over and over from somebody.
Yep.
And then again, you surround yourself with a bunch of different people and you hear someone say it differently. It just all of a sudden clicks, right?
Yep.
As opposed to, whether it's the person or the delivery or whatever it is, for some reason, it just wasn't registering until you heard it this other way. And that's another reason. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to the ethos of why we started this podcast is we want to talk to people that are driven and have what we feel like are good perspectives on whatever their craft might be. And I mean, I'm sure Ben feels the same way, but even if people are doing stuff that I'd have no plans to ever do with a horse, like if we get them on here and we get them talking, just hearing their perspective is so helpful and so educational. So yeah, that's really, really cool. Also, that's awesome for that kid that he gets to be in that environment at such a young age too.
Yeah.
Gets the keys to the Cadillac of his little pony.
Yeah. Like that same boy, we're teaching these colts to hobble and getting our ropes down and different things. And so you'll see him over there like, Hey, Brody, why don't you give that pony a break? Okay. Yeah, I'll give him a break. He's doing good. Yeah, he's doing real good. Brody, you're doing good. Give him a break. And then he'll look over and he'll see somebody kind of getting their horse used to the hobbles. And then next thing I know, I look over there and he's got his hobbles on upside down and he's trying to put on his hobbles. So then we're helping him with the hobbles. And then he's like, I want a rope on this pony. Okay. So then he sees that. And then somebody else might come over and show him how to get the pony working a rope and different things. And it just feeds. And especially for young kids like that. And that's what helped mine the most too, is if you can get a kid around another kid that's a little better and kind of has some stuff working. Oh man, that other kid can teach my kids more in not even just playing than I can trying to help them. Yeah, it's incredible. And, along those lines, just thinking about Joe being here and stuff, like I've been talking to my help, like, hey, when Joe gets here, I want you to work a cow or work the flag and have him help you. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, Joe can tie one's mind to a cow. And I know we obviously know how to do that to some extent too, but let's see how he does it. Like we might be missing something or something we can add to our deal. And so like, I'm already kind of prepping my help and even my kids too. Like, hey, like I know with Crew, I want him to just go ask Brian for help and hey, get Brian to help you start this horse. Like you guys just pair off and you can start horses with me anytime. Like this, not very often you're going to have a chance to start one with Brian. You just go with Brian and have him help you start them. And then like my daughter, Thule, I was like, hey, during Cowboy Week, I want you to work the flag or work a cow and have Joe help you there. And yeah, it's awesome. And believe me, I'm going to be listening too, because I guarantee there's going to be some stuff that I can pick up and use for my deal for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know you're a good guy, Nick, but part of it is that it's incredibly helpful for you to do this whole deal, right? I mean, if I had the facility, I would be doing the same thing. I'd be making phone calls all the time, right? Because it's just like you get better, but obviously it helps everyone else too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of how Bill did it too. Bill did it as a way to kind of give back and help some people and give them a dry place to ride and a fun atmosphere to do it. And that's how Cowboy Week's always been. Like I've always made it a point where I'm not going to go solicit my help, but if anybody asks, you can guarantee I'm going to drop and help them if they want help. But other than that, you do you and shoot, I'm probably going to learn something watching you too. Like it's not everybody comes here so they can see what I got going. I bring them here so I can see what they got going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a minute ago there, you were talking about how everybody's doing the best they can, but nobody's trying to outdo each other. And that's something that I've struggled with is having a false sense of humility where you kind of have an aw shucks attitude. You could do a little bit better, but you kind of hold back a little bit, or you have that aw shucks sort of attitude because you don't want to, show anybody up, or you don't want to come across as being cocky. And I don't know if that's something you've ever had to deal with or been around someone who has kind of a false sense of humility, but I imagine that situation would be a good place to deal with something like that, where you have an opportunity to bring your best, but learn not to. Well, it's because it's not really a matter, like when you do that, it's not a matter of like learning not to show other people up. It's that you feel like maybe you're going to, or you just have some chip on your shoulder that you're going to somehow, I don't know where that feeling comes from, but I know I felt that before, where I'm around other guys and like you don't take on and show, or at least try as hard as you really can, because you want to kind of act like it's no big deal and you're not all that. And you're not all that. But I don't even know where that feeling comes from for people, but I know I've felt that before. And I imagine being in a scenario like that would really help with like kind of easing that and learning to give all you got and realize you're not trying to outdo somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's so cool about like Brian and Joe is like I being around them early on, I learned real quick that they were incredibly talented and had an immense things going for them. But at the same time, they were just as hungry as I was. And they would look at it from the perspective of me years ago. And they never looked at it as looking down on me. They always looked at it as like kind of bringing me bringing me up, not looking down. And that was so valuable. And I think that's helped me so much through the years, where you can pull people up without talking down. And that's all we're trying to do, right? It's just we're all crazy to get better, and we're at different stages, but we're all hungry, and that's okay. Like where you're at is fine. And I remember one time Brian told me, and I'll never forget it. He says, and this was early on too. He said, "Yeah, I want you to get this stuff figured out so you can come back and help me someday." And I said, "You're crazy. Like, how would I get the experience? Like, it's going to take me so long to get the experience. It's going to take me so long to get where you're at. I'll be lucky if I get there, let alone be able to help you. Like, you're crazy." And, like, I thought that was pretty cool of him to say that, like, "Hey, get this stuff figured out so you can come back and help me and show me." And just having guys like that we can look up to is, so valuable, so valuable.
Yeah. I think that's got to be the first step to grow is freeing up those lines of communication, and then creating an environment where ideas speak for themselves. It's not an ideology. It's the ideas, and your actions can speak for themselves. And that's really cool that you had a mentor that could say that to you, because like that just gives you so much more confidence in your own future, that whether they get better or they're, whatever happens with them, they're doing the best they can. They're helping you get better, and they don't mind if you get better. They just care about you getting better. There's no they never say something to you like, even when you get pretty good, I'll still be ahead of you. Imagine how awful that would be if someone said that to you, or if you just felt like that's how they thought. But if you truly believed your mentor just wanted the best for you, how empowering would that be?
Oh man. And that's why I'm just so blessed to have those guys in my life when I did. And Bill was the same way. Bill was the most selfless person. I mean, he made everybody, from the ranch cook to the irrigator to me starting horses, like he made everybody feel like they were walking on water around him. Like he was incredible at that. Like he made everybody feel important. And so how blessed was I to be around those guys, to be an example to me, so that, someday I can hopefully be that to somebody coming up. I'm so beyond blessed. And, when you're 20 years old and you're looking at your life and you're like, where am I at? What am I doing? And just thinking of it then versus now, looking back, and the people God put in my life when he put them in, and how they were able to be those examples to me and stuff. I mean, so blessed, so blessed. And you've had Brian and Joe on here before too. And they'd say the same thing about being around the guys they were around. And so that's a lot of Cowboy Week too, where if I can help somebody and be an inspiration, I'm all for it. I don't think I'm any better, but if I can show them that what I'm doing now is totally possible, that's what it's all about. And guarantee 100% there's going to be people here that, from a accomplishment standpoint, are gonna pass me up. And that's great. I mean, that's awesome. And that's what's so cool about those guys too. They didn't try to make me mini Bill Van Normans, right? They tried to equip me to be the best Nick Dowers that I could be. And that's what I want to do. That's why the training DVDs are tough for me, because I feel like I'm limiting them to me and stifling that creativity that's going to make them special, right? There's so much God-given tangibles that they were equipped with. And if I can let them have the confidence to tap into those intangibles, they're gonna pass me, or they're gonna pass, they're gonna flourish with those, because those are intangibles that are God-given that I don't have. And so if I can equip them with the confidence and some of the guidelines or principles that are going to allow those to flourish, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope a lot of people listen to this, and I hope a lot of people go to, watch Cowboy Week, but this spirit of humility mixed with the desire to get better, that's what's going to help, horsemanship or the whatever we're doing with horses prosper and get better and not die and dwindle out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, that's so, like Joe said earlier, that's partly why we started doing this. It's because you need camaraderie and community. You need to share your gifts or receive gifts if you don't have them. And I just love what you're saying. I hope a lot of people listen to this, because that's so important. Before you get off on the ideology and the different ideas, you have to have a good, have a spirit of humility in how you come to the table. And I think that's what it sounds like you're setting, and that's what I hear in what you're saying, and I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, and it's just what I was presented with at a time in my life that I needed that. And I was, you can go down all these different trails, but when you've got guys to look up to that think along these lines, these good biblical principles, man, it makes life easy, right? And like I said, if I can help bring together a group of guys and we can kind of demonstrate that it's not hocus pocus, and it is real, and you can have people that are successful at what they do, and they think that way, man, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to shift gears just a little bit, we've talked about how beneficial this is for the people and hopefully all the people watching. But, I heard you make the comment, you even save your performance horse colts for this week. Like that, it's also such an awesome environment to start a colt in, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, they have all those other horses around, and I mean, you can just not necessarily overface them, but you can just present them with a lot of stuff, and hopefully in the right way. And like that's going to be really cool too. Like, can you talk a little bit of, maybe if you start in one at Cowboy week versus you just got like one to start, in the middle of the summer or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
like to me, it would be like a completely different vibe.
Oh, for sure. Because there's a handful of people, and they might be doing different things. So like if I started a horse here by myself, it's going to be me and that horse, and we're going to be doing our thing, and it's going to be productive, and it'll be fine. But at Cowboy week, what's so awesome is I might be getting along just plumb good over here, and then somebody over here starts dragging a tire on their colt, and then I can go tie in with them and expose my horse to that. Or, like you can just ride over and I can grab somebody's bridle rein and they can grab mine, and we can pet on each other's horse's head back and forth, or just whatever it is. Like, hey, we're getting this horse caught by a hind foot, to get him ready for some things. Well, heck, I'll bring mine over. You want to do him next? You bet. And we'll do a lot of that kind of stuff. So there's just so much more opportunity for different stimulus that they're going to see, but they wouldn't see it in a week. They'd probably see it over a month. And it's not that we're overexposing, but we can just go get some, like I said, if somebody's dragging a log over here or whatever, you can go get a part of that, and you can use those other horses to help get you to go around there. And I mean, it's the sky's the limit on what you can do. And it's just hard to create that when it's just you and your horse. It's kind of like if you can prepare your horse to be branded on quite a bit at home, but there's nothing like going to that first branding and everything, doing the preparation. You got your horse ready, you go out there, you brand, and then at the end of the day, it's like you put 15 rides on him, just the amount of experience he got, just because you can't simulate a branding until you're at a branding. It's kind of like Cowboy week. You can't simulate Cowboy week on my own till I'm at Cowboy week. And so that's what's really fun about it. Yeah. And so along the lines of what you said about my performance horses, there's a handful of them I'm going to get started, but anything that maybe I might work with them once, and then it's like, ooh, this one's going to be a little touchy here. Oh, don't mess with him again. Let's turn him out and let's save him for Cowboy week. So I'm going to get a few started before Cowboy week, but they're going to be the cream puffs. I'm going to save anything that I get in any inclination that it's going to be a little bit outside of the box. Those are the ones I'm going to save so I can go get help from these other guys and maybe show me a little different twist on something. And that's kind of how we go about it, or I do.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Well, because you know, obviously way better than me because you have more experience, but you like when you get those colts started, like if you have that environment, you're just like, yep, I mean, this is life now. And most of the time, that 2-year-old brain, they just go with it, right? You know,
Yep.
that's the age and kind of the mind frame where they're like, all right, let's just, people are dragging tires around the arena, horses are getting roped, all this stuff's happening. And,
Yep.
and like you said, one person by themselves at their place could eventually get all that done.
Yep.
But when you're starting colts, you don't necessarily want straight up chaos, but having a lot of activity when those colts are in a frame of mind of, well, I don't know a whole lot about the world, so I guess this is just what we do. And then we drag here, and then, they put hobbles on my feet. And, we did all that, and like I was fine, and all the other horses around me were fine, and everyone was really laid back. So I guess that's just what life is, and it's all good, And
Yeah.
that's invaluable.
Oh, exactly. And for me, like another scenario of kind of the same along the same lines is like when I take my horses, and it always blows my mind. Like because I ride my show horses here, and I ride them on the ranch, and we haul a ton of different places all the time. Like we just use them like ranch horses a lot of times. And it always blows my mind that I can go to that first show and they just, they're just not the same horse because it's like taking them to a parade. They've never seen a parade. The only way to get prepared for a parade is to go through a few parades. And it's kind of the same way at a horse show. Like I'll take them to a horse, and there's 400 horses in there, and horses are screaming from stall to stall, and my horses are not used to that. And the only way to get them used to a show is take them to a show. And it's kind of like that. But if we can start off their life where Cowboy Week is their show right off the bat, man, that helps, especially like in the ranch setting, because they've seen all these different things they've been exposed to. And it's just, you just said it, like I'm going to expose them to the same things, but it's going to take me a month to expose them to the same things that I'm going to get in a few days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, no, if you're still talking about this, go ahead. And then I have a question about something else.
I was just going to say the other part that's really fun too is we do start colts, and that's probably 60% of what we're doing, maybe more, but we all bring older horses too. And so, like I was saying, I'm going to get some of my help to quiz Joe on working a cow, and we'll have advanced horses as well. And we can throw some ideas off each other there. Like a little story about that was really fun is Andrea Fapani was here at Cowboy Week, not last year, the year before. And I was working the flag, and, I'd get to the end, I'd stop, and then my horse, he might just take a little step or do something. And Andrea's like, hey, you know what I do when I trot to the center of my reining pattern? If my horse, if he doesn't just stand there, like if he goes to walk or does something that I'm not really looking for, like I'll just turn him around real quiet and then give him a chance to stand there. And then if he stands, I leave him alone. And if he walks, then we just start turning around. And so he's like, try that on the flag. If that horse, if you go over there and your horse is standing good, just leave the flag and just sit there. And then if he looks away or starts to drift away with his mind, he's like, just send that flag off the other way and then go back over there and get it. And so he helped me work a cow with a concept, a principle, or, a practice that he learned on his reiner. And so how cool is that, right? And that's kind of what we'll do there is, good horsemanship is good horsemanship. That's what I mean. You can take it from reining, and he took it from reining to cutting, but it's horses, right? And so there's a lot of that kind of crossover too. That's really invaluable.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Cool story. I like that.
Gosh, yeah, that's cool. That's got to be fun to have Andrea Stefani at your place tooling around. What I was going to ask you about a minute ago is a little while ago you mentioned, those horsemen that have they have like a good foundation in biblical principle. Now, when you said that, it brought to mind something that I learned early on, how they view like the order of nature in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like God and humans and animals and all that. And so between Bill saying that, and also one time he was going off, and this was when I had first met him. He was one of the first people in horses that had like a biblical foundation that he would like talk about in conjecture with horses. And he also mentioned how, God gave us dominion over the animals. So it's not even like you should or shouldn't ride a horse. It's like, if you're going to ride a horse, that's your duty to understand it and have dominion over it, and be a good leader. Um, those are some thoughts that came to my mind now. And I just wanted to see, could you expound a little bit on what you meant by that, in terms of horsemen who have a strong biblical foundation, or, principle, make somebody a better horseman? Because that's not something I disagree with you about on at all. But it's not something I've thought about very deeply. And
Mm-hmm.
those are a few areas I've thought about, but I was wondering if you could expound on that a little bit, how that would affect somebody and possibly make them a better horseman, or enlighten them, or however it helps them.
Yeah. Well, first thing that comes to mind is just the fact about going about what you're trying to convey or get your horse to help you with the right motives, right? Like if you're going about it with like a real worldly motive of trophies or money or any kind of a worldly motive, the horse is going to see through that, and there's going to be some tension. Like you might get results, but like you can see the different expression from the horse, and you can just there's some animosity there, or there's not a purity there that I was able to see with the guys that I was around, that it was such a pure, clean, it's almost like the joy of the Lord on the horses in a way through the rider, just having that. And I don't know how to get the very most out of a horse if I was to go about it with like worldly type things, right? And I'm not saying I got to figure it out, because I'm just like everybody else. You have your ups and downs and whatnot, and then it's just like taking a horse that's doing something that's undesirable. God just doesn't. If you're doing something that God doesn't want, He's not going to just beat you over the head with a stick till you figure it out. He's going to let you go out there and struggle a little bit, and then you come to the realization, this is the path of least resistance. This is where I'm lining up with God and His Word, and what He has for me and this horse. And it just like it over here's hard and it's struggle, and then when it lines up and it's pure and it's joyful, it's just easy, right? And so when you can take that form of leadership to your horses, I feel like it's so much more pure. It's so much more pure, and you can tell, like you can tell when they're working, and you can definitely tell on the horse, because like as we all know, like the horse is just a reflection of the handler. So like if I can get them to have the respect that you would have for God or whatever, but it's a pure respect, it's a joyful respect, and it's just like when things are lined up, man, it just looks easy. That's my goal with my walk and my horses. And so I think if you can kind of keep those things in mind, like the Brian, the Joes, and Bill, and everybody else that I've been blessed to be around, it just, I don't know, it just makes it's more fun for you. I know it's more fun for the horse, and it's just pure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Because I think, someone from the outside could look at that and and think, oh yeah, that guy thinks, because he's a Christian, his horsemanship's going to be better because he's blessed or something. But you're not saying that at all. But in many ways, maybe your horsemanship will be harder. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
God's working on you. But
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
it seems for sure like having a good understanding of the order of things, and
Mm-hmm.
that totally makes sense. That you would take on that gracious nature, that now you're in charge of this animal, and you want him to feel back to you the same way you want to feel back to your creator, and that can
Mm-hmm.
get really deep. But
Yep.
I 100% agree with you that someone who is in that headspace and thinking that way is going to have a much better time and a much more enjoyable time working
Mm-hmm.
with horses, and their horses will enjoy being with them much more.
Yep.
And I'm sure you do see that, not only just because of competition, but I'm sure, I mean, we've all been to rodeos and big events and things like that, and the morale can start to spiral pretty quick, So it's not even
Mm-hmm.
just maybe your attitude to the horse, but next thing you know, you're just kind of you could become a degenerate in certain circles. And so I'm sure surrounding yourself with people who are really reaching upward, it's not only going to come out in how they are in the competition or around their horse or around you, but it comes out in their horse's expression back home by themselves
Mm-hmm.
in the round corral or in the arena or out around the ranch. It's going to be a daily lifestyle thing. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was really glad to hear you say that. And I totally agree with you 100%. And I think that's an important part.
It is for me.
Yeah.
It is for me. I could use my gifts to further my own worldly gain, or I could use them to draw me closer to God, and I use them to draw me closer to God. And it's just like you said, it doesn't mean that mine are better because of it, or they're worse, or whatever, or your horses aren't any good because you don't know the Lord. I'm not saying that, but there's a joy, there's a peace, there's a peace that surpasses all understanding, and I think your horses can take on that same worldview of life and take it how you're taking it, because they're just a mirror of us, and that's what I'm trying to create.
Mm-hmm. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember, Ben. I can't remember who, but I feel like we've recently had someone on the podcast, um, who said, we were talking about kind of this subject, and they said, I don't think horses are God, but I think horses are some of the closest thing we can get to God, in this life, because they are so honest and truthful
Yep.
about how, how do you feel? How do you make me feel? Because I know, as the horse, how you really feel,
Mm-hmm.
and you can lie to everyone else, but you can't lie to me,
Yep.
and that's kind of, that's kind of like what your relationship with God is like, right? It's like there's one being that knows you 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the horse's ability to know someone 100% is pretty unparalleled, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah. And like the first thing that comes to mind when you're talking about that is just how a horse can forgive and forget so easy. Like you might do something, and you were in a bad state of mind, and you did it, but the horse, if you repent of it, they just forget it, and it's like it never happened, right? And that's what's so cool about them too. Yeah, but I've never heard that, but that I'm going to use it. I like that a lot. That's really, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree with it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to misquote anybody, but we recently had someone on the podcast, and I don't. The thing I hate, this is why we always try to record, is like as long as we can. I think they said it like at the end
Mm,
after we were done recording or something. But yeah, I think about that a lot, where it's like, in terms of their ability to know you,
mm-hmm,
horses are one of the closest things we have to God
mm-hmm.
on this plane of existence, right? So
Yep.
that's important to keep in mind before you go you know, maybe doing some unhorsemanshipy type things because you're not thinking, right?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I don't remember who said that, but I kind of recall that. But, well, and that brings it back around, Nick, to like what you're building though with Cowboy Week is that you're focusing it on, I mean, from everything you've said, I think if we could break down all the words, get AI to do it or something, you've talked more about relationships between people than actually working with horses. And that's something that it took me a while to get through my thick head, that becoming a better people person was going to help me become a better horseman. And and like what we've been talking about with the horse, absolutely, like that horse affords you this sort of unreal opportunity to to sin, repent, and be forgiven in a way
Yep.
that, you know, with humans, yeah, you might have forgiveness, but you know that person may not give it yet, you know. And so God may forgive you, but you're still going to feel the repercussions of your sin. But horses have this unreal ability to forgive you in most cases,
Mhm.
and that's quite an opportunity. But at the same time, you know, those relationships with people are going to be more trying in your life, and those are going to be even harder. And so those are always going to be at the forefront of your priority is being good with people. Yet that's how you become a better horseman. It's not necessarily like what we've been talking about. It's not necessarily just riding horses by yourself. It's
Mhm.
working with your mentors and your friends and your peers. And so that still aligns, that your human relationships come first and foremost, because that's how you're going to grow. That's how you're going to get feedback, and you're going to get, you know, honesty as to whether you are progressing or not from your friends. And then you have that experience with the horse as well. So it all kind of works together. But yeah, when you mentioned that, I was really happy to hear you say that, because I think it's we haven't even had that many discussions on this podcast about it. But in general, I think, especially with like podcasts and media, you don't hear people kind of like stop and pause and talk about that. Or if they do, it can be kind of woo woo, or like, you know, just all weird, you know. But it's a thing that's a part of so many of our lives. We all think about it, and many of us talk about it. And so it's a great discussion. And I'm sure there's people that listen to this that they may have not thought of that, you know.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we're not saying they're right or wrong, or no one's, you know, yeah, I have no hard feelings against someone who would differ, but I would want to invite anybody to consider that, at least, because it
Mhm.
might change your life.
Mhm. Yeah, it might. And if somebody could watch one of us work a horse and see that there's something different there, you know. And I'm not saying the way we work horses is spiritual, but like you can see the glow of the Lord on people, right? If you're looking, like there's just something there that's not normal, and it's so peaceful and it's so pure that you might not even know what it is, but man, I want some of that. And that's what I want from these guys too. You know, like I just want to be better. I just want to be better. I want to be a better role model. I want to be a better example. Those are all the things that I'm just constantly working for. You know, in all honesty, if I was gonna be selfish and um, do things the way that I wanted to do them, nobody would have any clue of me as a horseman or anything, because you know, I feel like God has given me a bit of a platform. He's given me the ability to ride and train and show horses and work with horses. And so like for me, going to shows and working there, I really take a lot of I put a lot of responsibility on myself to be a good example and to be the kind of person that would draw somebody to God, if in nothing more than the way that I just try to conduct myself and conduct the way that I go about my horsemanship. Um, because he's given me this opportunities and this platform to do it, and he's definitely, you know, blessed me with some ability there. So I don't want to squander it. If yeah, so I take a lot of responsibility there, because in all reality, if you kind of knew me, I would just stay at home. I love being at home. I love being on the ranch, but that's my mission field, so to speak, is going out and doing what I do. And so that's kind of why I do what I do, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, I suppose an atheist could counter this, but you know, the horse believes there's a creator. He knows there's a creator. So if you don't believe there's a creator, he's going to feel that pretty quick. And
Yep.
especially if you don't believe there is, or you're not surrendered to one, he's not going to, he's going to notice that. Like the glow you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the horse can probably pick out if you have that glow or not, you know? And so if, you know, again, yeah, an atheist could counter that, and that would be a whole different topic. Luckily, we're not talking about that right now. But, you know, the horses know who their creator is, and they're at peace with that. And they have, you know, there is a structure laid out for them in nature. So if you're not on the same plane with that, I think that's how you have those horses with the dull eyes, and they just kind of learn to put up with you, and that's that. And that's that change you start to see in a horse when you work with them, and the eye, it's like they get a new set of eyeballs, you know, and they're alive, and things might even be worse for a little while before they get better, but at least you're working with the real horse and they're engaging with you. And it's like at last they have this freedom because you're under the same set of rules. You know, you're not just out there for your own ego and your selfishness and just going, you know what, horse, I own you and you're going to listen. And that's all there is to it. And people get it done. People get horses to listen to them, but you can see the difference where a horse is a slave or a horse is a team member and a partner, you know, and part of the team.
Yeah. And believe me, in saying what I've said, it's not, I don't say that to say that I've got it figured out, but that's what I'm working towards. You know, that's my goal. And I just want to make sure that that's out there. I'm not saying I got it figured out, and I bet if you ask Brian or Joe, they would say the same thing. We're not saying that we have the brightest glow, but we're working towards glowing more every day, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And to be fair, like we talked about, the horse, you know, isn't that Tom Dorrance? They know if you know, and they know if you don't know.
Oh yeah.
Right. They, even if you're not saying you're all that, you at least have that direction. And the horses sense when you have that direction. Because I mean, I'll be the first one to stand up and testify. Like, just because you have that direction does not mean that the horse is like, okay, now everything is totally fine, and I'm gonna be like, I'm a bridle horse when I wake up tomorrow. That does not happen still. You know, they'd be like, wow, your direction is sweet, and we're on the same page there, but your timing's terrible, and I'm gonna buck you off right now. So, but I feel like if they sense that direction, like you said, Nick, you're way more apt to like have that forgive and forget, right? Because they can sense like, well, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to figure this out, you know? And yeah, maybe when we're trying to do whatever, it feels clunky right now. But I'm just going to trust that, you know, I'm not trying to hurt you and I'm trying to do the right things, and we'll figure this out together. And because they just having that sense of direction, to me, I think it makes it easier with the horses. Because I don't think I've never been one who's like, I gotta thump on this horse because I gotta get a blue ribbon or whatever it might be. I've never had that attitude. But I know I've also been like a 19-year-old working with horses, and it's very hard to be like a 19-year-old male and have that perspective of, okay, we're working at this together, and I'm trying to, you know, like you said, have those biblical principles. You're like, no, I want to get this done because I'm 19 and I got to like get this all done right now, you know? And so just having that perspective, the horses know it. And that'll get you far. You still have to put in the time and develop your skill set and develop who you are as a horseman. But starting with the right direction can be a game changer.
Yeah. Well, that just got me thinking, like if I was to work with a horse and I was trying to push my things on that horse and really try to push it in there, and you're going to figure this out, and I'm trying to make it all about what you need to accomplish because I need you to accomplish this, they're way less apt to forgive and forget that versus if you went about it with the right mindset and you were letting them kind of figure things out, and maybe your approach was a little off, but you come about it with a clean mindset. That horse, if you come out the next day and he's not liable to harbor that, but when it's spiteful and you're trying to get a horse that's, you dumb sucker, you got to get over here, and you're trying to put that on him, there's going to be some residual there. But if you just let a horse struggle, and maybe you're letting them struggle and your timing's a little off, they're going to be way apt to come along board without any residual effects than they would if you went about it with the different mindset.
Yep. Absolutely. Because they feel all that and they know all that in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty special animal.
Yeah.
No kidding. The real gift.
Yeah. Well, isn't that why we do what we do? I mean, it's a good, I think about that. I've been trying to think about that more is, man, it's a good life when you just get to ride a bunch of horses and do all this fun stuff. And, it's not like life's perfect all the time, but man, it's pretty cool to be around horses all the time. I really enjoy my life because of that.
Yeah. Like this fall, I took a hunting trip, and I probably didn't ride for a pretty good chunk of time, maybe close to 10 days. And it may be the only time in my life that I can remember not riding for 10 days when I wasn't laid up or hurt or something, right? And I could not believe how, taking that little break, how much I missed it and how excited I was to go to work after that. Man, that was fun to see that, it's not just the way I make a living. Like I do love this. That was kind of eye-opening to me because, like I said, it's the first time I took a break on my account, not a circumstance. And boy, was I hungry when I got back. And honestly, because I was so excited and I had such a joyful mindset about working, I bet those horses are further along with, like let's say the month they got 15 rides instead of 25. At the end of the month, they were further along just because I was so fresh and so excited to do it again, and not that I wasn't before, but I didn't realize how much I really, it really craved it. It was pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you being summoned, Ben?
No, but I caught it that time halfway through. Yeah. I keep silencing my phone, but it pairs up with my MacBook. And so even if it's silenced, it thinks it's all right to come in the back door right through the podcast. So yeah, my fiance has done that. That's the third time in a row now that near the end we've gotten Helen coming through the airwaves there. So.
Yeah. That's your 2-minute warning right there.
Apparently. Nick, where is when is Cowboy Week happening?
So we're going to film the 22nd through the 26th of January. And then as soon as we get done filming, I'm going to sit down and with a couple others, and we're going to edit it, but we're not going to edit it, so to speak, of like, okay, let's cut this part of this session out. Is more of like, what topics do we want to, what were the cream of the crop of topics we want to cover that happened that day. So pretty much we're just going to take, we're going to do a little bit each night, but we're going to take the weekend and we're going to say, all right, when Brian was helping Crew start that horse that first day, let's make sure to get that in there. Let's take this and make sure to get that one in there for the day. We're not going to piece it up and take out things that didn't work or whatever. We're mostly going to categorize it so that you could look on there and say, all right, the first day I want to listen to the coffee table talk or whatever, boom, click on that. And then there'll be kind of a list of the different topics that happen that day. And so we'll do that through the weekend. And then the next Wednesday, I believe, is the first day it's coming out. It's January 31st. There's going to be the first day. And then through the February 3rd, we're going to have 4 days. And there's going to be at least 3 hours, more probable to be closer to 4, because it's going to be hard. There's just going to be so much information. It's going to be really hard to pick the topics and get it cut down, because we're going to film all day, and then we're going to take what we feel like is the best topics and put those out there each day. So it's a long way to answer it. It's going to be January 31st is when it's the first day is going to pop up, and then there's going to be a day's worth through the 3rd.
Oh, okay. And do you know already what platform you're going to air that on?
Well, you can go to my website, and through there, it's all on there. It's real straightforward. I'm not a computer guy.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, make this simple, make this real simple, so I can, even I can figure it out. Right. So it's all going to be on my website. You can pre-order it now, you can buy it. And then once you buy it, you're going to have access to it for the year. And then we're going to take it off at the start of next year's, and then next year's will pop up, and then you'll have that for the year. And maybe we'll have a deal later where you can go back and buy or whatever, however you do it. Membership,
like archive all the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We'll archive it, and then you can go back and reference it. And I'm really hoping that and I don't see why we wouldn't have enough topics to where we can have, the Cowboy Week as an event, but throughout the year, be able to throw out another video or 2 a month of different topics that we didn't have time to share. And we can throw those out throughout the year, keeping everybody hungry for the next Cowboy Week.
Man, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And your website is nickdowers.com?
Yep. Yeah, it's all on there. Yeah. And then like on the socials and stuff, there's going to be a lot of stuff. And that was what, like, it all kind of just fell into place, and kind of how, again, back to where, the idea of Cowboy Week. I did a clinic this summer with Brian and Joe up in Montana. And it was the first time that, since I've been doing a few clinics, that we all three were in the same spot working with students and horses. And golly, it was fun. It was a lot of fun for us. It was a lot of fun for the participants. And so I was like, man, we need to do that more. Like, I need to get around you guys more. And they thought the same thing. And so that's where we were like, well, let's do Cowboy Week. We can get around each other and have a chance. And, quite honestly too, I want to have that stuff archived for my kids and my grandkids and all that, just to go back on. Cause like I was saying earlier, like, how awesome would it be to go back and have a camera on the fence watching Ray and Tom. And I'm not saying I'm in that category or we're in that category, but how awesome would that be? And so I wanted to get some of that stuff kind of locked down and kind of be around forever type of thing. So that's where we're going with that. And it worked out really great, because I told Nicole Pollo about it last year. I was like, hey, you need to come down here and be a part of this. And so she just come down as a guest just for Cowboy Week. Cause I don't know how many people know, like, she's a student of horsemanship as well as with her photography. And so she came down, and photographers bring their camera. And so she just got a bunch of cool footage, and we never knew if we were ever going to use it, but now it worked out pretty good. So now we're using that to kind of prep everybody for what Cowboy Week is. And we've got a bunch of content from last year. So it's cool.
Oh man, that's great. And like you said, recording that for your kids, that is such a legacy gift. That's incredible. Not just because you're their dad and they can, watch dad ride horses and have you around, but you're doing a skill. So, I mean, whether they don't pursue horses, I mean, that is invaluable. I mean, I think anybody, imagine if your dad left you a video library of him doing his thing, that'd be a hell of a gift.
Yep. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yep. For sure.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to it, man. Like I said when we talked on the phone, but before we even talked about doing the podcast, I saw that and I was like, I bet that's going to be a really cool deal. I was going to be excited about it. So, yeah, I'm glad we got the chance to talk about it more and got a chance to catch up with you a little bit. And yeah, we'll look forward to Cowboy Week.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I know we look forward to doing it for sure.
Good deal. Well, stay on the line. We're going to stop recording, but don't hang up yet.
Okay. I don't even know how.